Hello, Charlie TCG here. Welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down and analyze the meta, what's happening over Japan, and how will it impact Taiwan. And today we're talking all things Japan's meta and how will it impact our World Championships in just a few weeks' time, which is honestly incredible to think it's so soon. Next week, we're going to have the biggest prestigious Pokemon event, and honestly, it is going to be an amazing event. We've had the Shroud of Fable format legal in Japan for just over a month now, and we've had it just legal since Friday on the online events, and it has changed so much since then. Regidrago has skyrocketed to be one of the strongest archetypes. Charizard Dustmore is kind of still doing pretty well, but a little bit underrated right now. And Knights of Gardevoir are kind of steaming up from behind, be one of the strongest decks as well. So we'll talk about how that will impact the meta game. With that, we're looking at the results happening in the Japan, that World Testing event that happened a few weekends ago, where some of the best players in Japan, all ones that qualified for World Championships, competed, including likes of Todd Reckler flew over there. So it's going to be really interesting what some of the best players in Japan will be the strongest archetype. Let's also look at a breakdown of the meta game and also some of the best decks performing in the Stellar Miracle format, and also how that can be impacting our Shroud of Fable, plus some brand new cards. So let's start right there, some of these interesting new archetypes. Let's first of all look at these Alola Executor Terra Pokemon. So already we've got to think there's a lot of good support out there with the A spec, with the likes of a Crispin. So let's look at the attack. For a water grass fighting, swing a sphere, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's basic active Pokemon is knocked out. If tails, choose one of your opponent's bench basic Pokemon and knock that Pokemon out. Now, this is pretty powerful. We have some very strong basic Pokemon in the format. Think of the likes of Raging Bolt and the likes of Roy Moon, these very powerful, big basic decks. This could be used very well in this one. But if you think about it, we have the likes of Regidrago, we have the likes of Gardevoir, Charizard, even Shenpao, which can focus on very much these very strong Stage 2 evolution Pokemon, which is that can definitely be a little bit misleading. But what makes the Executor so powerful is the Execute. If you get to go first, you can use the attack on your first turn, search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon and put it onto this Pokemon that's evolving. So instantly, pretty much if you go first or even go second, getting this one, having it all of a sudden go from 30 HP to 300 is incredibly powerful. And again, you can pair up easy from Crispin and that A-Spec as well as Shining Crystals. Effectively, this can be a very powerful sort of deck. If we're in a very heavy, big basic format, this would definitely be a lot stronger. Lactose CX definitely goes in that big basic format. Have the ability Skyline, your basic Pokemon have no retreat. Again, think about likes of Raging Ball kind of going towards the likes of the Area Zero. And this could be a really good inclusion because Raging Ball is a very high retreat cost. So having this in Latias to have that free retreat could be very strong. You're never using it for a second attack. Rich Energy, however, I think could be very strong with some controlling archetypes or even Quaquaval. It's basically just a colorless energy card as your A spec, but when you attach this card from your hand to one of your Pokemon, draw 4 cards. Now, this is really good. Think of likes of Speed Energy. That would use an lot of archetypes purely because you have that really good inbuilt draw factor as your energy attachment and not relying on the item cards or supporters. Why do I think it's good in Quaquaval? Well, Quaquaval EX has a good attack, 230 damage, but you get to return 2 energy attached with Quaquaval. You return, say, for Rich Energy and a basic water. You can use the base Sword and Shield Quaquaval to attach to Water Energy, then Rich Energy again to draw additional more cards. So it's a really good inbuilt draw factor. Yes, I know we have the likes of Enhanced Hammer, but effectively I think Rich Energy could still be very strong. Control Element as well could be really good for that guaranteed draw factor, but potentially you want to use some additional ones like Unfair Stamp to be a bit more destructive. Some of the new cards we got, we saw this Nessa's Approval, which basically is Boss's Orders, but with your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. Is this the death of Boss's Orders? Will we not see another Boss's Orders and see this as a different sort of a gutsing effect? Potentially, but I think this is really good as preparing for the future time for a new Boss's Orders, which I am quite here for. Drayton is pretty interesting. Look at the top 7 cards for your deck. You may reveal a Pokemon and a trainer card you find them, and put them into your hand, shuffling by cards. This is basically Great Ball as a supporter card, but also you get to find your trainer card. You can dig for a supporter card for next turn, dig for an item card, potentially you might need to have draw factor into your deck. A tool card, a stadium card, there are some really good synergies with this one. This could see you play, but guarantee it's only look at the top 7 and not look at your whole deck for this one. I would not see it as powerful. Dustball, however, I think is really interesting. It's basically Great Ball, but reverse. Look at the bottom 7 cards of the deck, reveal a Pokemon you find there, shuffle your hand. Now, this is really good, especially in Iono. In a format where Iono is incredibly powerful and nearly in every other deck, where everything gets shuffled to the bottom of the deck, they could get rid of some of your key pieces, so Dustball could definitely work in the factor. Personally, in the game, I love Dustball, so seeing the card be printed, it's really exciting. Dragon Potion is this additional 60 heal from active Dragon-type Pokemon. Could this be seen like some Regidrago if you're utilizing Hisuian Gudra a lot more? Potentially, this could be a really good sort of additional healing factor. This healing 60 damage could sometimes be a bit more game-changing as well, especially protecting you from big Charizard one-hit KOs. I think this is really interesting. This will be, I believe, in our in our November set. So quite some interesting cards as well, especially a new Boss's Orders and some interesting Terra and base spec cards overall. So now let's look at the meta, how it's really progressing in Japan, and kind of look at a snapshot overall. So if we look here, this is a really powerful sort of visual as well to see how many points certain archetypes won in between June and July, when the set was legal. And you can see here that the top 3 archetypes are still Charizard, Regidrago, and surprisingly Lugia. Lugia is definitely one of the biggest surprises in this meta. I would put it more of a Dragapult or a Regidrago, one of the strongest ones, but Lugia could be very powerful, especially with how strong likes of Iron Hands is early game. Bloody Luna really added so much for the archetype, and the likes of having the jamming tower, stopping likes of Defiance Belt from Charizard, or even the Bravery Charms on Raging Bolt and Gardevoir can make Lugia very much a big threat. The tier 2 archetypes being in Raging Bolt, Gardevoir, and Dragapult winning the most in the tier 2 archetype definitely makes a lot of sense. These 6 decks are definitely ones which I want to keep in mind because I want to touch on them a little bit later because I think these are definitely one of the strongest 6 decks right now. You can even see that on my video I posted a few weeks ago, sorry, about some strongest archetypes for the Shrouded Fables format. Rest of the tier 3, tier 4 are definitely some archetypes which have seen quite a bit of play. They have the rogues of archetypes. I still think the likes of Shinpao is still pretty strong. Lost Box as well, kind of fallen a little bit from grace, and definitely Japan loves much more of the block lax control instead of likes of Pidgeot. Now, how can we really impact this in some of your testing? Well, definitely we can see, look at the top 6. These should be the archetypes to be tested against the most. Having likes of Charizard be one of the best archetypes, because it was definitely the poster child for this format. Having Dusknoir, having the likes of Serendipity really added to consistency and damage output this deck really required. And Regidrago as well, getting likes of Kyurem, Haxorus, as well as also Serendipity again for the consistency, but it's also Night Stretcher as well to try and like bring back some Pokemon. It did incredibly well in this format. Lugia well didn't gain anything, but I think the meta game really kind of progressed it to be much stronger. Like so Raging Bolt is very fast, very aggressive. Again, Serendipity, that's going to be said a lot because it is so powerful for that consistency and drawing into this one. So like some Gardevoir, again, didn't gain much, but I think as the meta sort of progressed, it became much stronger in likes of Charizard and Regidrago. If Regidrago became a much more powerful archetype, Gardevoir I feel like has a really good spot into this one because it's less Charizard, so you need to worry about these full price turns that Charizard can deal with. And I think the likes of Dragapult, again, the meta game really progressed into this one. Yes, lots of Pokemon are going to play the 70 HP basics and not rely on the more optimal 60 HP one, but Dragapult has a really good niche sort of meta game. Adding more of a Hawlucha, having the Dusknoir, trying to gain additional more prize cards that way, makes the Dragapult deck very scary. So let's look at the metagame, how it really progressed in the World's Testing Ground a few weekends ago in Japan. So looking here, the most played archetype in this one was Charizard, followed shortly by Regidrago, Lugia, Gardevoir, Raging Bolt, and the likes of Dragapult. Again, these are the top 6 archetypes which perform incredibly well in the gym challenges, so there's absolutely no surprise that these decks have done really well over here. These are decks that people more favor more often. So again, we're seeing the results in the gym challenges, which some people might say, oh, it's just basically league challenges, but if we look here at the World's Testing Ground for the best players in Japan and the rest of the world who kind of compete in this one, these are the top 6 archetypes which were the most represented decks. So again, these are ones that people are thinking. Charizard is incredibly strong. Regidrago gained a lot of good support. Lugia, I think, and Gardevoir didn't gain anything, but I think they're really well placed in the metagame. Whereas like of Raging Bolt and Dragapult kind of gained a little bit more consistency to make it a much stronger archetype. And this is really translated into the top 16 results. Regidrago became 50% of the metagame. That is a huge percentage. 8 Regidragos made the top 16. It is a very powerhouse archetype, and I'm really excited to talk about this one. Hopefully I can get a mastering video for this deck out this week, because I think it's one of the strongest decks, and I want to talk about it. I've been playing quite a lot of Regidrago, and I think it's incredibly strong. The likes of Charizard doing pretty well as well. It's still not really something to be snuffed about. I think it's a very good deck. The likes of Lugia, Lugia, the likes of Snorlax, as well as also Gardevoir, I think are also very strong picks. I think it's good to see them doing very well. I think Snorlax are a really good matchup into likes of Charizard and Regidrago. They don't play a ton of switching cards, so having this one, they can really easily trap in their Serendipity. I mentioned, oh, it's a really good one, but having Flute, they have a lot of cards in these decks which they do not want to have benched down as a basic Pokemon, so Snorlax can really capitalize on this one. And I believe likes of Gardevoir have a really good match against everything else. And looking at the top 8 sort of a matchup as well, we can see that Regidrago still stays at that 50%. Charizard was at 25%, and then Lugia and Snorlax also gained in with that 1 slot each, which I think is really good. Now, the biggest takeaway I can think about this is look at knowing, do you know your Regidrago metagame? Are we going to see in day one of Worlds 50% Regidrago? I doubt it, but it's going to be a deck which is very, very fast, very consistent. And when I was playing it, the amount of times turn two you can get to it is incredibly powerful. This deck, you need to understand the mirror match inside and out. You need to know what's the optimal way, how you can get the turn two attack. If you're not going against these big basic Pokemon, thinking about likes of Charizard and Gardevoir, is Kyurem exactly the best way for this one? Should you add likes of Cantus and Cologne? Is having multiple 4 or 3 Oakapons the best way to play the deck? Do you need to Legacy start all the time straight away as soon as you get this one, or save it for a later turn? These are some really good questions you should be thinking, and really should be in front of your foremind, as it got 4 of the top 8 placements and 8 of the top 16. So Regidrago getting 50% is really strong. Charizard getting 2 placements here. It's definitely, again, something to really consider. Is definitely Dusknoir really help this one, or should you go to more straightforward and thinking more Gouging Fire and remove the likes of a Dusknoir, because that doesn't really help your Regidrago matchup? Should you go heavy counts of a Nestball to, again, help out your consistency, or play heavy counts of the Night Stretcher so you can constantly reutilize your mana fee to protect them from these really scary current plays? Likes of Lugia and Snorlax, I think definitely the decks were definitely snuck in just a little bit, but I think, again, they're really, really powerful archetypes. They didn't gain a ridiculous amount of really strong cards, but Lugia was really, really powerful. That very, very scary likes of Ogapon, taking the additional 2 prize cards that way. Also the likes of Iron Hands, as well as also any of these scary sort of Blood Moon Luna in the late game. Lugia is very much a scary archetype. Cinccino is definitely the best way to play this one. Or, as you've seen a lot of the likes of Gardevoir, should we go back to like Drapion and Weirdir to play that sort of version of the deck? These are some questions you should be thinking. Likes of Snorlax, is Snorlax the best way, or is likes of Pidgeot? I really like these questions that this has really brought up. Just from these 4 archetypes doing really well at the event, these have made me spiral on these different sort of questions. So if you're testing, do you know your Regidrago matchup? If you're playing Charizard, should you be taking in Gouging Fire, or should you be chucking Fortunes as well to really help in that sort of factor? And likes of Lugia, are you playing Drapions and Weirdir, or are you going back to Cinccino as it could potentially help you in a lot better other matchups? So again, these are some questions which I really am excited about. I think they should definitely be answered because of how powerful these decks are. So now let's just look at the top 6 archetypes which are performing well in Japan currently, and some changes I will make in the Shroud of Fables format. Now, looking at Regidrago, the big poster child, you can see here, it has literally gained no new cards, and this is basically nearly my exact 60 which I'm playing right now, which is really, really fun to see. One thing I love is Night Stretcher in this one, because if you get multiple discarding factors in this one, you can bring back likes of a Halucha instead of relying on likes of a Super Rod and gain additional more prize cards that sort of way. By pinging some damage, you can attack with Dragapult. We know Dragapult is the best attacker, so playing the 2 of them is really strong. If you are scared about these ones, you go, oh, why don't I play Hitsune Heavy Ball? Well, most of your attackers are going to be stage 2 or V-Star Pokemon, so that's not going to have any effect. You're seeing here that there's more Giratina being played in most archetypes instead of likes of Raging Bolt. I personally think Tina is the best attacking option. Why sacrifice likes of 4 or 5 energies with Tina? You can only sacrifice the likes of 2 energies. Yes, I know they're gone forever, whereas you can go, oh, Raging Bolt, I can recycle them. But with Giratina, you can easily set up likes of Dragapult and potentially take a 4 or even 5 prize turn, depending on how you guys spread your damage counters. So I think it works really well. I think having Radiant Charizard is a really good secondary attacker, especially in the late sort of game, because you're not going to be wanting to have these Pokemon out all the time, these stage 2, these 2 prize Pokemon. So Charizard is a really good late game option, especially in likes of these Raging Bolt matchups. Again, we're seeing the Catstone Prime Catcher. This is played constantly time in Shenpao. It's going to work now with the likes of the Kyurem. So I think it's a really good inclusion as well. Serendipity and Mew for its additional more draw factor, and having likes of Squawkabilly is really, really strong. Support account being a 4/2/2 is really, really powerful. And yeah, I think this is a very, very fast, very consistent, constantly gain a turn to attack, which is exactly what this deck really requires. Looking at Charizard, it has gained a few more cards from the new set, but most importantly, it's using like Briar. Briar makes sure if your opponent has 2 prize cards remaining, when you take a knockout with one of your Terra Pokemon, take an additional more prize card. Now again, this works incredibly well in likes of Charizard. How is that possible? Well, you're obviously going to be taking additional more prize cards from the likes of Dusclops and Dusknoir. You can force them to get the 2 prize cards that sort of way. Yeah, Pidgeot to search out all these combo cards. And if you look at this deck right now, going, oh, how am I got players in the current format? Well, discard Briar for additional more grass and Fire Energy. It's easy peasy. I think this is a very, very fast, very streamlined sort of deck. Just when you play the 1 copy of Nestball, lots of people are opting to play 3 or even 4 Nestballs in their deck, and you can easily kind of go around this one. This does play a lot of 1 of basic Pokemon, so effectively a heavy ball could be a nice inclusion as well. I really love the 1 copy of Switch, even with the likes of the for us, the true scenario. If you're not playing the likes of the power pad, this is a really good inclusion. Again, this is very weak to area, especially with that sort of factor, especially if you prize the likes of your Turo. But I think it's a really nice sort of addition as well. I think Defiance Band really adds to Charizard, making sure it can hit these huge one-hit KO potentials, especially with likes of the Dusclops and Dusknoir Ink package as well. I really think that Charizard is still one of the strongest decks right now, and thank you so much for the support my mastering video. That really does mean a lot to me. It's a deck which I put countless hours in this one, and seeing this deck here, I think it's one of the strongest versions I've seen, and very streamlined as well. Another one at all is Lugia, finishing off the top tier 1 archetypes. And again, we can see here, having gained a ton, likes of Pheasantipity, having an additional draw factor, I think this is much better than likes of Mew. Mew is also good because obviously you can use that attacking option, but it's also very weak and weak to dark and has 180 HP, so very easy to be KO. Yes, I know Pheasantipity has 210 damage, but it has a really good sniping attack, so 100 damage anywhere, which I much prefer. Again, we're seeing here they're going with 4-3 split of Cinccino. I don't like the 60 HP one, especially with how powerful like the Dragapult is, whether it be Dragapult itself or even the likes of Regidrago. I think 70 HP is definitely the best way forward. So force them to find that Lugia is much stronger. Legacy Energy with having one copy of Iron Hands is really strong. Again, you've seen multiple attacking options, and this is the deck that wants to go 2-2-2. We are very much a far cry from how powerful Lugia once was in its heyday, but I think this is a really good inclusion. If you want to know what's the best way to play Lugia right now in this brand new format, I could say this is definitely one of the strongest builds right now. Maxing out consistency for item cards, supporter cards, and NG as well. V-Guard, I think, is definitely become a lot more stronger, especially of how powerful the likes of Regidrago is, and if they're opting to play in the likes of Giratina over the likes of Raging Bolt. Again, I think this is much, much stronger than that. Now let's look at Gardevoir, and this one here is definitely focusing more on the build, which was seen just before Likes of Shroud of Fable kind of appeared as well and then disappeared. The reason why I say this is having the likes of TM Devo. TM Devo kind of had its time in the moment and they kind of disappeared, but now I think it's back to stay, and I think it's a really good inclusion in this deck, especially with likes of Monkey Dory spreading lots of damage counters that sort of way, with having the Mimikyu and Fluttermane to slow down your opponent. I think it's really, really powerful. The TM Devo play can easily win you a Charizard matchup much better than these other decks. Again, with Charizard, they can easily they have to force them to use their whether it be a Charmeleon or a Radiant Charizard to get a big one-hit KO on Mimikyu, or even focusing on getting the Dusknoir. But I think having a multiple of Mimikyu and the Team Devo makes it much, much stronger play. I like the Churi as well to pick up the likes of Gardevoir, but not having the likes of the Collapse Stadium, I think, is a very, very much a weak sort of play now, especially I still love the one copy of Red Candy. It's out of nowhere, bring out that Gardevoir in the late sort of game is much, much stronger, forcing them to play kind of like a bit more fast and not thinking they have a turn off. Night Stretcher, again, kind of getting your Psychic Energy, or even the Darkness Energy for the Monkey Dory is really strong, and picking up the likes of Drifloon and Screamtail as your big attackers is really strong. The rest of the deck, I think, is very, very powerful. Having the 4 Arvin and 3 Iono is definitely much more a staple. And yeah, I think Gardevoir is in a really good position. Some people are playing the memory skip sort of rocks as a really good attacking option, especially against Regidrago, to stop them from constantly streamlining their Regidragos, which I think is pretty powerful. But again, you're weak to relax with Dragapult and the other sort of matchups as well. Again, something to this a little bit consider. Now, looking at the rest of the decks, we'll see Raging Bolt, and we can see this one is a very interesting one, incorporating a lot of these new sort of cards. We've seen the Area Zero, because I think that's a very, very good inclusion in this one, especially if you're playing the Ogerpon as well. You want to have a huge full bench. How can you utilize that? Well, let's chuck a Noctowl out there. Basically, having its own version of Pidgeot Searching deck for any 2 trainer cards and put them into your hand is really strong. Chuck up a Briar because this can really help you in Charizard. Charizard always going to potentially go 2-2-2. So all of a sudden, the Ogerpon can really come back from the back end and take 3 prizes all of a sudden, which I think is really good. I love having a counter catcher, as it's having a potentially guaranteed gusting effect on the coin flip while still using Presses Harder. It's really, really strong. I like having multiple switching outs and having the Rotom fan, as well as also the Pheasantipity for that additional more draw factor. If you look at how this format can really be developed in the other one, potentially a Cornerstone Ogerpon Mask could be a really good one to include. This slows down most of your attacking because a lot of the decks like Raging Bolt and Charizard, not Raging Bolt, Regidrago, Charizard, and Lugia focus on having Pokemon with abilities as their main attacking of choice. So effectively, that can be really good to slow down your opponent. Again, you can see more Vita Chocolate cards like Iono, or even having some more good searching cards like Mew and potentially another sort of Radiant card like 3 to slow down any of your opponent. Potentially could be a good inclusion for Raging Bolt. And being one of the last decks I do want to talk about is the likes of Dragapult as well, before I get into the very fun one. And you can see this Dragapult one is utilizing quite a few of its new cards, the Sparkling Crystal, the likes of Crispin, but we are still seeing some of the core aspects of the Shrouded Fables format, having a 1/1 Dusclops line with the likes of Night Stretch and Super Rod, so you can constantly reutilize them. Again, you're seeing a 60 HP Pidgey has basically become a mainstay. Playing a 50 HP one could be like, yeah, that's really strong, but Dusclops instantly KOs this one, and you don't want to give your opponent any free sort of prizes. Again, how can this be updated in the new sort of, in our sort of format right now? Well, have the likes of Upper Neo NG, it's also really, really strong. Check a couple Melas in there. If you're really scared, check a 1/1 line of Zartu, so you can have multiple NG accelerations, that sort of factor. I think Dragapult is in a definitely much a stronger format than it was previously, and generally, I think it's a very, very powerful archetype, and I'm really excited to see it kind of like progress, especially in the new format coming to Stellar Crown next month. And finally, let's look at Bird Control. This is a very, very strong deck, and I think one of the powerful ways to play Control. Again, Japan really loves the likes of the block clacks, but Bird Control is doing really, really well. It gained quite a few good cards. It already plays the likes of the Cornerstone and the Wellspring Ogerpon for having that disruptive capability, so chucking a Noctowl line makes a lot of sense. That's, I think, a very, very powerful one. Team here still to utilize any of your key sort of supporter cards, that Pennyloot and Arvin to get any of your cards you might potentially need. I think this is a very, very powerful control element. Really kind of like go through all of your opponent's sort of archetype deck, force them to kind of like get out their big sort of attacking option, use waste all of their resources, and this is a very, very powerful way to really respond to this one. Could I see this be played right now in the current format? Well, I think it has to have a lot of tweaks, but I do think this is a very, very powerful deck and a really, really strong contender for the meta. So, kind of looking ahead, how is the Worlds meta game from Japan really going to impact Worlds? Well, I generally think we are going to see a lot more Regidrago right now, and potentially even Lugia. I was very surprised to see how strong Lugia was in gym challenges, but it's also performing incredibly well in the Worlds testing ground. I think Regidrago now is the very much best deck in the format. It is very fast, it is very aggressive, it can easily be attacking turn 2, and has one of the best draw support being Ogerpon in it. And can Charizard really keep up? We've seen lots of these new sort of techs in the card like Briar help it in the Stellar Miracle format, but in the Shrouded Fables, we have a few tournaments afterwards as well. Could it really keep up? And I really hope it does. It's a very fast, very aggressive, and you are still running like basically 3 stage 2 Pokemon in this deck. I do think Charizard, it could be very much strong and could be the dominant deck right now, but it won't get that one because of how strong Regidrago is. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what deck do you think will actually win Worlds. This week I'm going to be doing a lot of Worlds testing, lots of theories as well. So let's also hopefully release my Regidrago masterclass as well. So I hope you guys are excited. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Sorry if the mic is a little bit off, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.